Hariom Tat Sat, a little short Mongol Shrine this morning. We're studying Srimad Shiksha. So in verse number 1, we first heard that this instructions of the mind is specifically for the Raganuga Sadhika, because in Rag Marg, the function of contemplation is extremely critical. So the mind needs to be instructed because of that. The essence of all advice given by Srila Rupa Goswami, Ta Nama Rupa Charitadi Satapya Vidya. Oops, wrong verse. Ta Nama Rupa Charitadi Sukirtana Nushrito Kramena Rasa Namanasi Niyoja. So the essence of all advice is that our tongue should be engaged in Sukirtan and our mind should be engaged in Anushruti, on the path of Rag. So one who doesn't have control of their inner life, control of their contemplative life, then they won't be able to practice Rag Marg. So these instructions are particularly important for those in the path of Rag Marg. So for that person, we heard the kind of most critical instruction, you can say, in the beginning, is dhamba hitva, that we should give up pride, dhamba. As we mentioned, when the mind looks, you can say, down toward the body, the gross physical body, and the things related to it, then it develops dhamba, develops pride. And that body and the things related to it become the worshipable objects for the mind, as expressed in our preoccupation with it, our preoccupation with the physical body, our preoccupation with the things related to the physical body. We're so preoccupied that we rarely have room for God. Even when we're chanting japa, we think only of the body and the things related to it. So this is what happens when the mind looks downward toward the body, it develops dhamba. But if the mind looks up towards divinity, and for the Rag Marg Bhakta, that means specifically Radha Krishna, and develops Sharana. Sharana means surrender to that divinity. Then the mind is elevated. It gives up pride, it develops humility, right? If you look down towards the body and the things related to it, you develop dhamba, pride. And if you look up towards Radha Krishna and the things related to Radha Krishna. So in the first verse, we heard Radha Krishna, that's our main deity, where we have exclusive devotion. And the things related to Radha Krishna, such as the guru, the Diksha and Shiksha gurus, the mantras that they give, the holy name, and Brijbasis, Brajadham, and the Brahmanas also, they're included in the list. So these are the things related to Radha and Krishna. So we should develop humility in relationship to that reality that is superior to us. That happens when the mind looks up towards its divinity, towards its source, Radha and Krishna. And when it looks up, down towards the body, it develops dhamba. So we're told in the outset that we should give up dhamba, we should give up this pride. Manifest it practically as a preoccupation with the body and mind, and the body and the things related to it. And we should develop apurvarati. Apurvarati means, unprecedented love for that reality. And we have to make great effort to do so. Atitaram kuru. There should be excessive endeavor in this regard in developing that apurvarati. This apurvarati is our North Star. Northern Star, Polaris Star. The Polaris stars, when navigators, I guess, in the old days, when they were navigating deserts or the sea, they would look towards the North Star in order to fix their location and be able to move through that region. So as we're moving through the desert of the material world, we have to fix our North Star. Our North Star is the apurvarati for Radha and Krishna, this unprecedented love for Radha and Krishna and things related to them. That is our North Star, and we have to make intense endeavor for that reality. Atitaram kuru. In some ways, you can say the work of the Rag Marg Sadhaka is more rigid than even the work of the Vaidhi Bhakta. We normally think of the Vaidhi, the Vaida devotee as being really controlled by rules and regulations, very strict. But when you're trying to develop a purvarati for Radha and Krishna, you have to make great endeavor to that, especially in your inner world. So there is even greater endeavor that's required, greater responsibility required in developing that, especially when it comes to really kind of molding your inner life. Normally, we just like to follow the rules and we hope that the molding of the inner life will happen automatically. That's the word that we like to use a lot. But when you have to really put effort in molding your inner life, that's going to take a lot of endeavor. Atitanam kuru. So this is the first instruction. Second instruction we began, and we're going to finish that today. So in the second instruction, he says that this bhakta should give up dharma and adharma. So we discussed that. Why give up dharma and dharma? Because we have bhakti adhikar. So the preoccupation with the world of dharma and adharma is when you're not surrendered to Krishna. So once you become surrendered to Krishna, sarva dhamma parityagya, right? Mame kam sharanam braja, Krishna is telling the Gita. Once you have adhikar for bhakti, so the adhikar for bhakti is shraddha. So once you develop that shraddha, you have bhakti adhikar. Then from that adhikar, now you are qualified to just surrender to Krishna and to do his work. To just think of him and meditate on him, and etc. So the devotee is not concerned with dharma and adharma. So the author, Srila Raghunath Das Goswami, is telling the mind to give up this preoccupation with dharma and adharma and simply to worship Radha and Krishna. Why? Because you have adhikar for that. So if you have adhikar for something, you don't work according to your adhikar, we discussed it only briefly, then this is one of the meanings of the word niyamagraha. Remember this verse from Upadeshamrita? We probably should review Upadeshamrita. I'll relearn those verses. But you know the verse, Atyahar prayasascha prajapa niyamagraha. Janasanga chalo yamcha shabhir bhakti vanashiti. So these 6 things will destroy bhakti. And one of them is niyamagraha. You know what is niyamagraha? Niyama agraha, niyama agraha. So niyama agraha means clinging to the rules. That's how we normally translate it. Niyama means like the rules. So niyama agraha, clinging too strongly to the rules. The idea here is that you have adhikar for something else, but you are attached to the rules that relate to a lower adhikar that may have been helpful for you at one point in your progression. But now it's time to move forward. And instead of moving forward, you allow yourself to, be bound by the rules that pertain to a lower level of adhikar that you're accustomed to, that you're used to. So these in the words of Thakur Bhaktivinoda, this is also the meaning of niyamagraha. And this becomes a destroyer in bhakti. To give an example how that plays out in the context of, let's say, Rag Marg and let's say in our ISKCON family, for example, many devotees, they start developing interest in the subject matter of Raganuga Bhakti and the subject matter of Krishna Bhakti, Krishna's Ram Vrindavan. But because there's a sort of a social taboo around these sorts of topics, then you may reveal your mind to this one or that one, and you get shut down quickly, immediately. So as a result of that being discouraged, you don't pursue, let's just take it for granted in this context. You don't pursue a genuine attraction that may be emerging from your engagement with Krishna consciousness proper. You're hearing Gaur Leela, you're hearing Radha Krishna Leela, at least reading Krishna book. So there's some ruchi is coming. And instead of honoring that ruchi, you honor it, like have some taste, and honoring it and nourishing it by appropriate means. You don't honor it because, well, first I have to this thing and that other thing and these other rules that pertain to a lower level of adhikar. So this would be an example of niyamagraha. And Rupa Goswami said this also will destroy bhakti. So therefore the advice of our Raghunath Das Goswami is give up this dharma and adharma. Now you have this bhakti adhikar, you have ruchi for the realm of braja. Now you need to nourish that ruchi. So you just worship Radha and Krishna by doing smarna of Radha and Krishna and by doing sukirtan. Use your voice and glorify the topics of Radha and Krishna exclusively. This is your this is your business now. This is what you have adhikar for now. You acknowledge your ruchi, you honor your ruchi in this particular way, giving up the world of dharma and dharma. So then what about Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? He did not mention anything about Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So the commentators bring this up. Well, what about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? Because in order for the reti to be apurva, unprecedented, it cannot be divided. Love cannot be divided between different deities. You understand? Like in the Bible, it says you cannot worship money and God at the same time because you will love one and reject the other. Practically. Maybe in your mind, you'll say, oh, both are possible. But what practically will happen is that you will love one and you will reject the other. So the Bible was telling you cannot worship two deities. This is a basic point. So in order for the rati to be apurva, it has to be exclusive. It can't be divided. So we said apurva rati for Radha and Krishna. So what about Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? Should we not worship Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? This question is coming up for the commentators. So then they say, in answer to this, Sri Raghunath Das Goswami speaks the third line of the second verse. That's where we left off. Shachi Sunu Nandishwarapati Sutute Guru Varam. Yeah, Shachi Sunum Nandi Ishwarapati Sutatwe Guru Varam. Vakunda Preshtatwe Smaraparam Ajastram Numana. So Sachi Sunu means the son of Shachi Mata, the Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So you should understand that he is Nandishwarapati Sutatwe. He is the son of Nanda Maharaj. So the son of Sachi Mata, that is Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He is in fact the son of Nanda Maharaj. Nanda Ishwarapati. So he is in fact the son of the master of Nandagram. So that is Nanda Maharaj, Nanda Baba. So Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is in fact Krishna. So we should also worship Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu because that is also worship of our Krishna and Braj. That's what he's saying here. So worship Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and to worship Radha and Krishna is not to worship two deities and thus have a divided love, which means that your love cannot become a purva. But rather to worship Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is also worship with Sri Radha and Krishna. So your love will not become divided. It will still be a purvarati, even if you're worshiping Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. That's what he wants to say here. But you have to understand that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is also Radha and Krishna. So in this regard, so many of our, our Guru Varga, but especially I'm thinking of Kaviraj Goswami, he spent a lot of time in his Chaitanya Charitamrita trying to point out this reality to us. So there's many verses there. In the beginning of his Mangalchara, the first 6 verses glorify Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And in the third or the fourth verse? I don't actually recall. Hold on. I pulled it up here as a meditation for us. So we should study this 4th chapter of Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi Lila. Oh, I can't find where I put it. Hare Krishna, Hare Ram. So there it says, Radha Krishna Pranaya Vikriti Radhini Shakta Asma. Do you know this verse? Hold on. So Radha is Pranaya Vikriti. Krishna Pranaya Vikriti. So Radha is a transformation of Krishna's love. Radha, Krishna Pranaya Vikriti. Radha is a transformation of Krishna's love. Hladini Shakti Asma, which is the essence of the Hladini Shakti. So you know Bhagavan, he has his 3 Shaktis, internal energy, external energy, marginal energy. So the external energy has 3 aspects to it. The Sandhini Shakti, Samvit Shakti, and Hladini Shakti. So Hladini Shakti is the bliss aspect of the internal energy. So the essence of the bliss aspect of the internal energy is called prema. That is or bhakti. That is the essence. If the Hladini Shakti can be churned, and you get the cream of the Hladini Shakti, that's probably not 100% appropriate analogy. Then the essence of it is bhakti. And that bhakti has its degrees of condensation. I don't know if there's any better word than this, when it becomes more and more condensed, right? Just like the sun is sunshine is light and the sun is also light. But sunshine is like not condensed light, and the sun's globe or sun disk is condensed light. And when it becomes more condensed, it has a form that you can actually see. The sunshine, you cannot really see the form of the sunshine so much. You just experience the illuminating quality of the sunshine, but you cannot really see the form. But when that light becomes condensed in the form of the sun disk, then it has a form that you can see. Of course, you don't look at it too much because you might go blind, but you get the idea. You can see the form of the sun disk. So similarly, the essence of the Hladini Shakti, when it becomes more and more condensed, it has a form. And that form is a form of all the resonance of the spiritual world, of course. They are the forms of the Hladini Shakti, and specifically Sri Radha. So when this bhakti becomes more and more condensed, it is called Reti, then Prema, then Sneha, then Man, Pranaya, Raga, Anuraga, and then finally their Mahabhava is there. And the form of Mahabhava is Srimati Radharani, right? Shri Radhika, she is the form of Mahabhava. So Shri Radha is the transformation of Krishna's love, which is the essence of the Hladini Shakti. That is the first line of the verse. Then Sri Kaviraj Goswami goes on to tell us this thing. If you go to Adi Leela, this is chapter 1, verse 5. Ekatmana vapi bhuvi pura deha pedam katoto. So ekatmana vapi, although they are one reality, ekatmana vapi, although they are one ontological reality, like musk and scent. Later on, Kaviraj Goswami will give this example, like musk and scent. I think he also uses sun and sunshine. You cannot have musk on one side and scent on the other side. They are always together. Similarly, you cannot have sun on one side and sunshine on the other side. No. Or fire over here and heat over here. No, they're always together, one reality. So Ekamanavapi. So Krishna and his Hladini Shakti, the essence of which is bhakti, especially in the form of Mahabhava, Shri Radhika, they're actually one reality. They cannot be separated, just as you cannot separate the scent from musk. Although they are one reality, Bhuvipura Deha Bhedam Gatoto, they have taken on two forms, Radha and Krishna. They are one soul with two forms. We have the twins here in our little group here. Our Guru Maharaj will often say that of them, that they are one soul in two bodies. He would always say that affectionately about them, that they are one soul in two bodies. So Radha and Krishna, they're actually one soul in two bodies. That's what the verse is saying. Ekamana vapi bhuvipura deha vedam gatauto. They are one soul with two bodies. Like the twins here in our group. So like that, one soul in two bodies, Radha and Krishna. Still, Chaitanyakyam Prakatamaduna Tadvayam Chaikyam Aptam. Now, these two forms have again attained a unity. Chaikyam Aptam. They have again attained a unity. Tadvayam Chaikyam Aptam. So these two, Tadvayam, have again attained a unity, and that is manifest as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So then he offers his obeisances, Radha Bhava Duti Subalitam Nomi Krishna Swarupa. My obeisances to Krishna Swarupa. My obeisances to that Krishna who is now decorated or adorned with the Bhava and the Duti of Radha. Radha Bhava Duti Subalitam Nomi Krishna Swarupa. In Srila Sridhar Maharaj's language, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Krishna, who is endowed with the heart and the halo. We were hearing this from Prabhu Swami. He's doing Gorkata, very nice Gorkata he was going. It was very beautiful, actually. So he was referencing, Srila Sridhar Maharaj has written a book called Heart and Halo. Heart and Halo. And this is a reference to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is decorated with the heart of Radha and her halo, her luster, her golden color. The heart and halo of Sri Radha. That is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He is Krishna Swarupam, but he is decorated with the heart and halo of Srimati Radharani. So, Raghunath Das Goswami has asked us to have a purvarati. A purvarati means that your love cannot be divided, it can only be on one deity. So, that deity is Radha Krishna for the people on the path of Rakmar. So what about Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? That Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is also Radha and Krishna. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Krishna decorated with the bhava and the duty of Radha. So the worship of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is also to worship Krishna himself. That's what he wants to say. So if you worship Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in Gaudiya Vaishnavism, your love is not divided. You will still get a Purvarati. In fact, the Purvarati will only be possible if you worship Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur and the rest of our commentators, they make that point. If you try to get a Purvarati without Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, you will not get the Purvarati. But if you want that Purvarati and you're making great endeavor, Atitaram Kuru, great endeavor for that Purvarati. But what is your endeavor in front of an infinite reality like Radha and Krishna or God in general? Just like if you were standing at the shore of the ocean and you have to think to cross that ocean, how you will cross it? But if you have to depend only on your own strength to cross that ocean, how will it be possible? It will not at all be possible. It's like we heard in the Richard Sura Leela, if you think to try to cross the ocean by hanging on to the tail of a dog. I don't know why the Devatas have given this analogy, but that's the analogy they have given. You think to cross the ocean by holding onto the tail of a dog, avismita. So this is very astonishing that someone will think this way. It's very astonishing someone will think, I will cross the ocean holding onto the tail of a dog. The dog will drown and then you also drown, finish. So we think we will attain Radha Krishna, so says our commentators. If we think we'll attain Radha Krishna by our own prayasa, atitanam kuru, by our own, then that is very astonishing that we shall think such things. No, we will not be able to attain. But if we are empowered by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, then all becomes possible by his mercy. So our commentators say that actually, if we want to get that Apurvarati and we're making great endeavor for that, that endeavor has to be empowered by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So mind, you should always remember Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is that Krishna. He is that Krishna decorated with the bhava and duty of Sri Radha. And only by worshiping him will you be able to get that Apurvarati for Radha Krishna, not otherwise. So two further questions come up for our commentators and bringing out this point. Question number one is that, well, if Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Radha Krishna, why not just worship Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? Why worship Radha and Krishna? This is question number one. And question number two is, why should we worship them separately or should we worship them together? So these two questions have come up from Thakur Bhaktivinoda. So in answering question number one, he says, no, we should not only worship Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, because to worship Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu means to follow what he has taught. Through the mouths of the Goswamis, through the mouths of Ramananda Roy, through the mouths of Swarup Damodar Goswami. You have to follow what he has taught to the world. That he has taught worship of Radha and Krishna. So if you worship Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu by himself without Radha and Krishna, then that will not be honoring the gift that he came to distribute. So this is how they answer the first of the questions. That no, you cannot worship separately, but you must, because he has taught us to worship Radha Krishna. So should we worship them together? Or do we worship them separately? Like first you worship Chaitanya Mahaprabhu one place and you worship Radha Krishna another place. No, so they should be worshipped together also. He says, for those who are attained Sadhya Bhakti, then when they see Radha Krishna, they also see Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And when they see Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, they also see Radha and Krishna. But if you are a sadhaka, we don't necessarily, we haven't realized the aikyam, the unity between Radha Krishna and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So they should always be worshipped together. They should be worshipped together. So you'll see in the classic Gaudiya Math temples, and a lot of our temples in ISKCON also, like here in Radha Govinda Mandir in New York, they worship Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is there and Radha and Krishna is there. If it is not a Gaura-Nitai altar there, many of our temples have Gaura-Nitai altar. But the classic Gaudiya Math temples, they have Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and then Radha and Krishna worship. So because this was a worship of Gaudiya Vaishnavism. Taking here from Manashiksha itself. One final point Thakur Bhaktivinoda points out is that we should worship first Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and then worship Radha and Krishna. So in this way, there's a progression in the way that we render worship. But even before the worship of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, there's one other reality of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that we have to worship. And who is that reality? That is the Guru. So in the last line here of this Manashuksha, he says this thing here. So Guru Varam Mukunda Preshtatve Smara Param Ajasnam Nanumana. So the Guru Varam means the Guru Varga, it means the spiritual master. So you should worship him also. How are you to consider him? Mukunda Preshtatve, that he is very dear to Sri Mukunda, who gives liberation. We sing this verse every day. Well, I'm just going to give the benefit of the doubt. Sakshat Dari Tvena Samasa Shastra Uktasata Bhavyata Eva Sapi. Kintu Prabhurya Priya Eva Tasha. Vande Guru Sri Charanaravinda. This is the 7th stanza of the Gurvashtakam prayers, composed by Sri Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. So there he is also saying that all the scriptures declare that Guru is direct manifestation of Hari. He is the manifestation of Hari himself. Krishna himself also says that Acharya Mamijaniya, that you should understand that the Guru know the Acharya to be a manifestation of me. So why is that? And so Sri Shastakam prayers point out the reason why we consider it this way. Kintu Prabhurya Priya Evatasa, because the Guru is very dear to Krishna, he is considered as not different from him. Just like the mother is having a child, right? And the child is basically considered non-different from the mother. To honor the child is to honor the mother, and to dishonor the child is to also dishonor the mother, because the mother has attained identity with the child. The child has come from her, and the mother has identity with the child. So if you do any harm to the child, you're directly doing harm to the mother. You understand? Another, like in also Ambarish Charita, the Leela, where Devras Muni tries to kill Ambarish Maharaj. Oops. And there, Sadhavo Hridaya Mayam, this verse is coming where Krishna tells Devras Muni that the sadhu is my heart, and I am the heart of the sadhu. I know no one but him, he knows no one but me. So Prabhupada writes very nice purport there. And he says, from this verse, we can understand that when Devras Muni attacked Ambarish Maharaj, it is to be understood that he wanted to give pain to the heart of the Lord. Because the Lord had attained identity with Ambarish Maharaj because of his bhakti. He is very dear to me, so now I identify with him. And so to give harm to him is to give harm to me. He is my heart. So you're trying to directly harm my heart. And naturally, I will protect my heart. So I send Sudarshan Chakra to teach you a lesson. And to teach the world a lesson through you also. So the Guru is considered very dear to Hari. Mukunda Preshtatve. Preshta means dear. He is dear to Mukunda. So why this word Mukunda is being used? So our commentators have something to say about that also. The word Mukunda means one who gives the liberation. He is called as Mukunda. So why is it said that the Guru is very dear to the Lord who gives liberation? Because Guru is the function of Krishna who gives enlightenment to the benighted souls. You understand? The souls are suffering in the material world due to the beginningless absence of awareness of God. And as a result of that absence of awareness of God, they have turned their attention outward towards matter, being grabbed by Maya and preoccupied with her forms, her various forms, objects, and so on. So as a result of this ignorance, it's very hard to get out of this ignorance. Even if you do Gyan Yoga, you do Ashtanga Yoga also, without bhakti, you not get out of this ignorance. Maya very strong. Mayam, what is that verse? Maya very strong. She has us like in a headlock. You know, headlock? When we were kids, when the bully would come, he would grab your neck and put you in a headlock and you couldn't get out. So we're in Maya's headlock and we try and get out by Ganmar, Yoga Marg. And Maya starts laughing. Look at this fellow trying to get out. He would not get out by these processes. Only by Bhakti Yoga you can get out. But how do you get that Bhakti? Brahmanda Brahmite Kona Bhagyavan Jiva Guru Krishna Prasade Pai Bhaktilata Bija. It is the Guru who gives the Bhaktilata Bija. He gives the Bhaktilata Bija through his voice. Through his voice, he's giving Bhakti Lata Bija. There's a very nice verse from Sanatan Shiksha. Oh God, let me pull it up. I haven't quoted this verse in a really long time. Very beautiful verse from Sanatan Shiksha. Kamadina Katina Katida Palita Durni Deshas. Tesham Jata Mayina Karuna Natrapa No Pashanti. Ushre Gyaita Nata Yadupate Sampatam Labda Bhutis. Okay, I did pretty good. I'm surprised I remember that much of the verse. So this verse says, there is no end to the unwanted orders of my lesser desires. The desires, they give many unwanted orders, isn't it? Many unwanted orders they give. And we serve them. We serve all those desires, hoping that we will get a little release from the abuse of the desire. Just like when I was in school, I often tell the bullies used to like me a lot. They loved Jaya Jagannath. I was the issue at that time. I had long dreadlocks down to my back before dreadlocks were a thing. So they called me all sorts of, I was a dancer. So I got picked on a lot. So that time, one thing that the bullies will do, they will say, give me your lunch money. And then otherwise we will beat you. You understand? Give the lunch money, otherwise we will beat you. So you don't want to get beat, so you give the lunch money. Now, if the bully was merciful, he will take the lunch money and he will leave you alone. But if the bully was not merciful, he will take the lunch money and beat you up afterwards, if he had no mercy. So here, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is using this verse. It's coming from BRS. He says that there is no end to the unwanted orders of my desires. And they have not shown me any mercy. So I'll pull this verse up. I think I found it. Yeah, this one. Tesham jata mayina karuna. They have no mercy. Even though I satisfy them, I give them what they want. Again, they abuse with another desire, another desire, another desire. This is due to Maya. Natrapa no upashanti. Natrapa means I felt no shame in fulfilling those desires also. And now upashanti, they also have not given me any peace. The whole idea is that if I satisfy desire, then I'll have peace. So peace did not come. Shame also was not there. And also there was no mercy. And they keep, again, another desire, another desire, another desire. This is due to Maya. Osreya Gyaita Nata Yadupate Sampatam. Love the Buddhis. But now my intelligence has been awakened. My intelligence has been awakened. How did your intelligence become awakened? Well, Guru Dev has come into my life. He's awakened my intelligence. And because he's awakened my intelligence, now I'm giving up such useless desire. Usreya Gyaita, now I'll give them up. What is the use of this useless desire? Now I'll give them up. Tam ayata sharanama bhayam mam yukshat madase. Now I will go and take shelter of the fearless lotus feet of Krishna because of the mercy of Guru Dev. So when Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was giving the purport to this verse, when he's giving the import of this verse, he says this thing. I'll just read the translation, not the whole thing. Kama krodera dasan taralatikai brahmite yati sadhu vaidyapa. That's why I quoted this verse. He says, because of the Maya Shakti, we become kama krodera dasa hana taralatikai. We become kicked by kama and kroda, like soccer ball, soccer ball or football. So on one side of the team is kama and the other side is team kroda, okay? When I was in, all my friends love soccer, all of them, all my guy friends. I'm the only guy friend that probably doesn't like soccer, but all my other guy friends, they love soccer. So I guess the soccer season is going on. So wherever I go, I see all my friends are watching the soccer everywhere. No matter where I was here in New York also, everywhere I go, they're watching soccer. So we're like the soccer ball, and the two teams are kama and kroda, lust and anger. So kam krodera das han taralatikai. So team kama is kicking one way and team kroda kicking another way. And this is where our whole life is being kicked by kama and kroda. Taralatikai, boom, 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 boom. Every single day, as soon as you wake up, They start kicking. No, I don't want to play. No, boom, boom. You're getting kicked this way, that way. No release, no peace. No upashanti, no peace whatsoever. Brahmite, Brahmite, in this way, wandering all over the universe, being kicked. I now get kicked to Swarga, then kicked to hell, then kicked to earth, kicked to Jambu Dweep, this Dweep, the other Dweep, just getting kicked everywhere. Such is our condition. But Brahmite, Brahmite, Yadi, Sadhu Vaidya Pai. But if you get the association of a Sadhu Vaidya, so this means Vaidya means like a physician. So the Sadhu Vaidya, he's the Sadhu who's like a physician. Then what does he do? Tanar Upadesha Mantre Pishachi Palai. He makes the witch of Maya flee. How? By his Upadesh, by his instruction, and by the mantra. By his voice, he makes the witch of Maya flee. Then you get Krishna Bhakti Pai. And then after that, you get Krishna. Tabe Krishna Nikatayai. And then after that, Mahaprabhu crosses verse Kama Dina Katina Katida. So that verse is quoted. Very nice verse from Sanatana Shiksha. So here in the Manu Shiksha, he's referring to the Guru as Mukunda Preshta. He is one who is very dear to Mukunda. Why is he very dear to Mukunda? Has attained identity with him for starters, because of that devotee's love. So Mukunda has identity with that particular devotee. And he's also Mukunda Preshta because he's embodying the function of Krishna that gives enlightenment to the conditioned souls who have been turned away from him from beginningless time. He gives the enlightenment, and by that enlightenment, they become liberated from the witch of Maya. So the word Mukunda is specifically used here, that he is dear to the Lord who gives liberation, because the Guru is embodying that function of enlightenment by which this whole world of bhakti has become possible. So our acharyas, they point out in their commentary here that when we worship, first we have to worship Guru, by which this whole thing has become possible. So Raghunath Das Goswami is instructing the mind this way. First you worship Guru, by which this has become possible. Then after worshiping Guru, you shall worship Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, by which interest into the Rama Radha Krishna has become available to the world. And then only after worshiping Guru and Gauranga, then you can worship Radha and Krishna. So in this way, the worship has to be conducted. He's telling his mind to worship in this way. So of course, in we talked about this in our very first class, the external path and the internal path of Rasa Upasana, or the worship on the path of Rasa, Bhakti Rasa. Then in the external path, which is about like the strict structure of contemplative life. So you'll see they have a book, Sri Gaur Govindarchana Smarana Paditi. So if you're going to look at that book, you'll see in the beginning, all the meditations are on Guru worship. And then after Guru worship, then so many meditations are on Gaur worship. Even imagining yourself as a pure sadhaka in Navadvip Dham, going to attend the Sankirtan of Mahaprabhu and serving Mahaprabhu in his Navadvip Leela. They have all these meditation verses that you use your voice. Because remember, the mind and the voice, these are the two most important elements in our worship on the path of Radha Marg. Your mind, which is transcreating all these songs and meditations of these verses. So you, with your voice, you sing the verses, and then those verses are transcreated in the mind. So there's a link of voice and mind, and this is called as bhajan. Without the link of the voice and mind, there's no bhajan. So that's what's going on with a lot of us. There's no bhajan going on. But when the voice and the mind are linked, then that is proper worship. So you'll see in this external Rasa Upasana path, they've given so many meditations in the beginning on Guru, then on Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and imagining and singing verses that imagine basically yourself as a pure sadhaka and Navadvip Leela. Then only after that do they begin Ashtakaliya Smarna. They begin remembering Krishna in the eightfold pastimes in the day. Then only then Radha Krishna Smarna happens and not before. So our commentators on this have said this, that he wants to say we should worship first Guru, then Gaura, and then Radha and Krishna. In this way, we are advised to try to develop the apurvariti. Of course, now, many of us may not have discovered our ruchi for Radha Krishna worship yet. So that we have to do. And these instructions become most relevant for those who have discovered their ruchi in Krishna consciousness. So don't delay. Start today. Keep hearing Radha Krishna Leela. Keep hearing from our Acharya so that maybe you will discover what is the ruchi for you in Krishna consciousness. And then these instructions become extremely relevant at that time. So we're going to pause here. I thought I would do the third verse also, but today I'm a little energetic for some reason. Probably because I got enough sleep, which is rare in New York. So a little bit melting on today. So anyone wants to say anything or add to the discussion here? Anything? So looks like, let's see here.
But I think there's a question in the chat.
Okay, Shango says, even before chanting, have heard that seeking blessings from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to attain proper mood of prayer to Radha Krishna during our chanting. Is this the reference for that statement? No, probably not, but it doesn't. You could probably use it as a reference for this idea, but what does it mean? I'm just thinking about this phrase: seek blessings from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to attain proper mood of prayer to Radha and Krishna. I'm thinking about that phrase. What does it mean? Seek blessings from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to attain proper mood of prayer to Radha and Krishna. What is the meaning of that? We say these things sort of clinically without, thinking about what it really means on an impact level. If that makes sense. We say a lot of statements that doesn't really impact the consciousness, such as the problem of being a conditioned soul, programmed by our swabhavas, moving around the material energy like automatons without any mind, without any heart. Yeah, it means without Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mercy, no mercy Radha Krishna. That's okay. So, I was at Bhakta Bandhav yesterday afternoon. I came back in the evening. So it was a long day because I went in the morning and we came back in the late afternoon. So it's a long day of driving, super tiring. In any case, we were there and for a sangha that Srila Damodar Maharaj was doing with his disciples and followers. They all drive up from New Jersey and Pennsylvania area, come up, super sweet sangha. And there he's in preparation for Ratha Yatra. He wants to speak of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu at Ratha Yatra, chapter 13, Madhya Lila. So I was reading that chapter yesterday, an amazing chapter and extremely esoteric. In order to really appreciate chapter 13, you would have to study chapter 82 of the 10th canto, which is where Krishna meets the gopis and Kurukshetra. And a lot of the verses that Mahaprabhu sings during that time of Ratha Yatra are verses from the 82nd chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam. And he's giving the purport to those chapters also, to those verses from that chapter. Amazing, beautiful poetry. If you allow yourself to be sarhidya, a little bit sympathetic to the moods there, it can move you a little bit. It's quite touching, in fact. And so when we say seek the blessings of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu so we can get the proper mood. So I'm saying, what do you mean to get the proper mood? We just say that, okay, there, Mahaprabhu, give your mercy. So that is also good. We should do that also. That is very important, actually. But also we should sing with our voice these chapters. Chapter 13 of Madhya Lila. Sing the whole Ancha Lila. Chapter 2 of Madhya Lila. That's one of my favorite chapters of Madhya Lila. Chapter 13 is now coming out for me because it was super duper beautiful. Sing those verses that Mahaprabhu has sung at the Ratha Yatra and those explanations that he gives of those verses at Ratha Yatra. Then we should learn those verses and we should sing those verses. This is called Sukirtan, right? We've quoted the verse. Ta nama rupa charitadi sukirtananu shmrito kramena rasana manasina yoja. If the tongue is to be engaged in this is Sukirtan, very good kirtan. You learn those verses that Mahaprabhu has sung and you learn his explanation of those verses. And you sing them like you use vocal prayer, like your voice is our voice is our weapon against Maya, right? We say that. The holy name is a weapon. We often say like that. But not only the holy name, the Nam Kirtan, or Rup Kirtan, Guna Kirtan, Lila Kirtan. All these are like weapons against the material energy. Of course, Nam Kirtan is supreme, but also Rup Kirtan is there, Guna Kirtan is there, Lila Kirtan. So we learn those shlokas, and you learn the meanings of the shlokas also. So while you're singing them, you allow them to be transcreated in your mind. Again, when voice and mind are matching, then bhajan is beginning. Some actual real bhajan is beginning when voice and mind are coherent. There's a coherence between voice and mind. Not the incoherence that often go Hare Krishna, but the mind is elsewhere. That's incoherent. So Krishna, like, what are you saying? Because mouth is saying one thing, but mind is thinking sense gratification. So there's incoherence there. It's like trying to send a message. If you're in war, you're trying to send a message to your other members of the military, but it's not coming through clearly. So like that, we're praying to Krishna with the voice, but mind is elsewhere. The mind is not doing any prayer. So they're incoherence. Make it coherent. Do Sukirtan, learn these verses. Allow them to be transcreated in your psyche by contemplating the meaning while singing. And then with that coherence, you can get the mood of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu for Radha Krishna worship, because he is worshiping Radha Krishna. And these songs that he's singing, that is the only thing that is going on. So in this way, I'm saying like this, so for impact. Otherwise, we're just like, Mahaprabhu, give your mercy. And then we go, start chanting Hare Krishna. So much mercy Mahaprabhu is given through the mouth of Kaviraj Goswami, through the mouth of Rupa Goswami, through the mouth of Sanatan Goswami, through the mouth of Narottam Das Thakur. They've given so much of Mahaprabhu's mercy through their songs. So we're supposed to learn these things. And drink it up. Pibhanti te Bhagavata Atmanasatam. Katamritam Shravana Puteshu Sambritam. Punanti te Vishya Shayam Varjanti Tashtarana Saruru Hantika. This verse comes at the end of chapter 2, very last verse, I think. So the verse is saying, Pibhanti te Bhagavata Atmanasatam. We should drink the Katamritam with the Shravana Puteshu, the ears, which are like the cups. Drinking the Katamritam from the Srimad Bhagavatam, we should drink it. And if we do that, Punanti te Vishaya Vadusha Tashaya. I think Prabhupada translates Vishaya Vadusha Tashayam as we become free from the, I forget how he translates. It's kind of a neat translation. The impure concept of life. I forget how he does it. I will have to look it up. Last verse of chapter so you can see it. Anyway, Vishaya Padusha Tashaya means the heart becomes cleansed of Vishaya. Vishaya means a sense enjoyment, the concept of being the center. And as long as we have that concept, we live off center because Krishna is the center. So we hold that concept of being, then we're the ones that are off center, and we have off-centered lives. We feel so much frustration and unhappiness. So then we do this Sukirtan that can heal our voice can heal the issue actually. How we can hear, so we drink up this nectar from Kaviraj Goswami, Ramananda Roy, Sort of Damodar Goswami, Rupa Goswami, Raghunath Das Goswami. This we will hear in the next verse tomorrow. And then by drinking that and meditating on it, then Sukirtan happens. And then we're saved. We get the mood of Mahaprabhu, as we say, we worship Radha Krishna. So I'm saying like that to give a little practical thing also. Okay, so I think I saw Athena has something, and it says Radha Jivan Gopal, but that's probably Siddharthi. Let's see. Athena, you want to go?
Hare Krishna, Dandavat Pranams. I had a couple of questions. My first one is, it's a clarification. When we say that our goal is prema, does that encompass like the variety, the rati, like raga, sneha, anuraga, mahabhav, or is that like above it, like separate?
No. These are all different degrees of prema. So it means all of it. It depends on your relationship with Krishna. according to the relationship with Krishna, then the love extends up to a certain point. Like the gopis' love goes all the way up to Mahabhav, but not the cowherd boys' love doesn't go that far. They go up to Pranaya. Some cowherd boys up to Mahabhav, but most of them up to Pranaya, like this. So prema is just like a generic term for this whole tapestry of love.
Okay, perfect. So even hypothetically, say we're following Vaidhi Bhakti or Sadhana Bhakti, when we say our goal is prema, it's still to reach one of these varieties, dependent on our relationship with Krishna.
Yes.
Okay. I just had heard something separate or different, that there's like something even above prema, which are kind of these, and it's kind of like delineated. So I just wanted to.
Yeah, above means they're more condensed forms of intensity, right? Like there's rati, and when rati becomes more condensed, it's called prema, more condensed sneha, more condensed pranaya, more condensed like this. So maybe in that sense above, but they're all part of the same ontological reality. Each one is included in one sense. Each subsequent condensation of love includes the previous state. So this is also described in the commentary on prema, actually, and the BRS. You can go and see it very nicely.
Okay, perfect. I guess I just when we hear, say, even Radha Swami mentioned our goal is prema, he ultimately means with like you're reaching for one of these categories. Not that it's like prema and it stops there and we don't reach for higher. It is still within that. As you mentioned, it's a category within prema that we're reaching for still.
Yeah, that's okay.
And then this is, I guess, when you were talking about how it seems like it's a very specific linear progression of, say, Guru, then we have attraction for Gaurachandra, then Radha Krishna. But I'm curious, just like how there are the 9 stages of bhakti, how there's like a little bit of straddling and then like down and then up. Like, I mean, couldn't one be attracted to Gaurachandra and his teachings without having a guru just yet? And even be attracted to the deities of Radha Krishna without being attracted to Gaurachandra just yet. And I am speaking from like personal experience and also coming into Krishna consciousness. It was always like Krishna and Radha, and you heard about Gaurachandra like much later. At least that was my experience. So you, in one sense, or I was attracted, you can say even to the deities Radha Mulidhar, and like Gaurachandra was like, it was like a nuance or something you learned much later, in your understanding of Krishna consciousness.
So these are instructions to the sadhaka on the path of rock mark, right? So this is not for anyone, everyone. These are not instructions for everyone who's coming to Krishna consciousness. Or, in fact, no, this is coming up in tomorrow's verse. The question is going to come up about, well, what about groups like in other sampradayas, like the Sri Sampradaya and so on?
Right.
Do these instructions apply to them? So the answer is going to be no. This is for those on the path of rock mark. These are instructions for those who are on the path of rock bhajan. So in the very first verse, he says that we should have apurva rati for the mantra. So the mantra means you have Diksha Guru. It must be there, otherwise you don't have the mantra. So how can there be apurva rati for the mantra that is connected to the deity Radha Krishna without having Guru? So that means Guru is there. And he says we should have apurva rati for the Guru also. So for those who have yet to embrace that reality, then these instructions are not for them yet. So that we've already mentioned. Because also most devotees that we may be knowing may not have also discovered their ruchi in Krishna consciousness. So these instructions don't have full relevance for them yet. Maybe only partially relevant. The other point to be made here is that because these are instructions to those who are engaged in bhajan, the word bhajan just means worship, and that includes, it's kind of in one sense another word for sadhana. Although a lot of, contemporary acharyas, they use the word bhajan in a very sort of specialized sense. But the word bhajan just means worship. It refers to the sadhana of hearing, chanting, remembering. All of this is called bhajan, generically speaking, as far as the presentation of the word in Bhagavatam. But here it's a type of this is not gonna land perfectly, but it's basically a type of ritual that's happening on a daily basis. Krishna Anukuyena, Krishna Anushilana. So you're doing like worship every single day. So there is a structure to the worship. Now, as we mentioned in the very first class, for those who are on the external path of Raga Upasana or Rasa Upasana, then the structure is extremely rigid. For those in the internal path, as given by Raghunath Das Goswami, it's less rigid. It's not super duper rigid, but it has some structure. And within that basic structure is like a container by which you're growing your ruchi until it reaches the apurvarati, state. So the basic structure is being given here. First worship Guru, like remember Guru and use your voice to glorify Guru who is giving you this opportunity, without which you would not have had this opportunity whatsoever. And then worship Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is giving this gift to the world, and then Radha and Krishna. So there's a general structure in which one will do worship. Now, if you're on the external path, they've already delineated all the shlokas that you're supposed to chant and all the things that you're supposed to meditate on in the external path. Where Raghunath Das Goswami, the internal path, that is not regimented. So the general structure is given. First Guru worship, then Gaura worship, then Radha Krishna worship. But within that general structure, as you're such a sadhaka, you can select your own meditation. What sort of verses glorifying the Guru have spoken to your heart? Maybe they're your own compositions, or maybe they're compositions from the acharyas, and you've threaded them together in a way that's meaningful for you. And you offer those verses to Guru first. Then the meditations on Gaura, you found these shlokas about Mahaprabhu to be very inspiring. So you thread those verses together, and then that's what you offer Mahaprabhu. And then Radha Krishna. So there's room for, let's say, creativity in our own, and personalization in our own worship of God. But Srila Raghunath Das Goswami has given us a general structure for holding that growth of ruchi. So these instructions are for these sorts of people. And as far as what you've described, yeah, that is also there. For those who are not yet on the path of Rag Bhajan, they don't have Guru yet, and they're just getting general inspiration, which is all this is going to be important in the later development of their bhakti, because they're creating the necessary impressions that we will need in order to grow a more intentional worship of the Lord. So that is also glorious. But these instructions are meant for those who are already sadhakas on this path.
Thank you so much. I guess this is just a comment, and you might address it tomorrow, given that you are going to talk about the other sampradayas. But I'll just share it, what's coming up for me now. I guess this was curious for me because one, we're following Sadhana Bhakti and Vaidya Bhakti, but even the mention of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, we're Gaudiya Vaishnavas and a specific sampradaya that believes in Gaurachandra or Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, because my understanding is, so it seems very specific instructions, I guess, within, like, I don't know if it's like ISKCON, but then it's not talked about much because it's so much of like the devotional service and external senses being executing. It's a different set of instructions. So I'm just curious, or this is just a comment that I guess this seems very, very specific to like our lineage / like when we reach a certain stage versus like a general, this is what happens in Rag Bhakti and other sampradayas, because most don't even believe that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Krishna himself.
Yeah, correct.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Radha Jivan Gopal, there's a golden hand there. I don't know whose hand it is.
Gora Hari, Prabhu, Siddha Hari, you guess it right. Prabhu, I was wondering, when Rupa Goswami says that, when Rupa Goswami says the words in active instruction, the Nam Charitadi, Sukirtanam, when we were here with Hari Pasha Prabhu, he was mentioning that the definition of Kirtan is that it has to be 3 people. How you define it? And it got like stuck in my brain, and it's like, when I'm thinking about, it's a Kirtan, just bring that number there, and I get stuck there. You need to have 3 people for me to do Kirtan.
No. For Sankirtan, there has to be 3.
Okay.
For Kirtan, it can be done alone.
Oh, okay.
In fact, Kirtan there will have to be sometimes where you do kirtan alone.
Mhm.
So for Sankirtan, there should be at least 3. Otherwise, you cannot call it a Sankirtan.
Okay.
But for kirtan, at least there should be, for kirtan, just the one tongue is also okay.
Okay.
Or so, like that. So don't take that as, well, there's no one else around, so can't do kirtan. No, you can do kirtan also.
Well, what happens is that I have to find people, like, let me call somebody up because I got to do kirtan, you know.
No, so for that, if you have to call someone up, so you can do Sankirtan. So for Sankirtan, there should be at least 3 people.
Okay.
Otherwise, if it's 2 people, it's still not Sankirtan. 3 people is Sankirtan.
Wow.
Like that.
Thank you, Prabhu. It's a very inspiring class today, especially seeing your energy in explaining this this section is very contagious.
Okay.
Thank you.
Looks like you have a new chutter too.
This is an old chutter. It's just super duper hot. So mostly you see me wearing the wool chutter because it's been cold. Now it is hot. And I would also not wear this, but it's probably not appropriate to give class bare chested. So I had to put something on. So I put this on. But even this is overwhelming. Like right now, actually, most of my chest is out. Only my neck is covered and my shoulder. But I have the camera angled in such a way that you cannot see the bare chest out. It's very hot here in New York the last few days. Okay, did we miss Hari Sham? I think you wanted to say a comment too.
No, I was just reflecting on this earlier point. I think it's already been fleshed out, but my only brief reflection was understanding the non-difference between Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Krishna and understanding how he carries the mood of Srimati Radharani. These are definitely things that come much later in our Krishna consciousness, right? Because just getting the concept through that Krishna is God, great. Now he's experiencing these moods and rasas. Unless we ourselves are tuned into wanting a similar devotional, emotional experience, it would be hard to appreciate that paradigm. That was it. That was just a brief reflection.
Yeah, but actually appreciation comes from some other devotee's appreciation, and you hear from that devotee. Then all of a sudden, the whole world that would otherwise be closed off to us opens up to us. Now I'm saying this thing. Now everyone should go and read Chaitanya Charitamrita chapter 13. It's 208 verses, I think. You go and read it and read it carefully, not too slow, but just carefully read through it and see what's going on there. The mood of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, that's what Shangopi said, right? The mood of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Go see a Mahaprabhu's mood there. And then see the verses that he's chanting. He chants a lot. He chants a few verses from Mukunda Mala's Trota. He even chants a verse, Namo Brahmanya Devaya Guru Brahmana Hitaya Cha, in front of the cart. See the verses he's selecting to chant. And the spirit of his explanations of the particular verse. Oh, this verse he's chanting from 82nd chapter. Let me go read 82nd chapter and see the context there. Then you start to get, immediately you can, why delay? Immediately you can be open up to such reality. It's not impossible. Now, how much you will be able to embrace that as a practice and so on. So yeah, as you say, much later. But appreciation can come from the very beginning itself. Devotees have joined this movement from reading Chaitanya Charitamrita as their first book, or reading Krishna book as their first book. They've joined the Krishna conscious movement. Such as the power of beauty that it oblige or surrender, if you can recognize it as such. Jaya. All right, Mother Gal, and there we will end there.
Yeah. Actually, before I ask my question, Athena and I have the same question in the chat there. You know, why it can't be 2 people for Sankirtan?
Has to be 3.
Okay, I surrender. I mean, I know one has to be call, the other has to be response. I don't know, maybe another one too. Anyway.
Actually, I have to go and look it up. I just remember reading this instruction years ago that 3 Sankirtan. We also were hearing from Hari Prashada and Kirtan 1. Maybe it's Hari Bhakti Vilas call. I don't know, honestly.
Okay. The other question, I think I actually asked you this before, but it still, needs to sink in a little better. So when we look up, that's humility. When we look down to serving the body, that's pride. So, it's because I usually think of pride as, a person who thinks more of himself than he should, or, a person who maybe even looks down on others. But when we use pride in this context, it's really pertaining to the false ego, right?
Yeah. False abhiman. Correct.
Okay.
That includes all the other stuff that you mentioned too, right?
Well, I mean, I guess, if you are, if your face is turned away from God, then it will lead to those other things.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Prabhu.
Okie dokes. Have a great rest of your day. Doing Sukirtan, at least a little bit of transcreation of the songs that you sing. We'll go back home, back to Godhead, singing. Like Srila Prabhupada did on his deathbed. He was singing the song of the Bhagavad, and in that way he greeted death with song. So this is our movement. Let us develop our songs for the pleasure of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and our Guru Varga. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaur Premanandi, Haribo, Sri Jagannath Das Goswami ki jai, Hari.